Hello there, we are your hosts Vivek and Pavitra from the Agile Coach podcast. In this podcast, we bring fresh perspectives to you through our interviews with thought leaders in Agile coaching, facilitation, business analysis, and product management roles. Enjoy.
Yeah. So I think my decision was very dramatic. I was 17 years old. I wanted to go study overseas. So for me, playing soccer was one of the key things in my life. Unfortunately, in Spain, it's very hard to keep playing soccer professionally and being in college at the same time. But I was reading multiple options and then coming to the US with a scholarship to be able to play soccer and study at the same time. It was a great opportunity. We've been learning English since we were kids. So obviously it was a language that we all were proficient in. So just coming to the US, being able to play soccer, do my degree, and then obviously learning new culture, making sure that I'm successful as a person. I also grow my career and professionally and individually as well. So it was very enlightening to just come to a new country, I came here knowing no one. I literally went to college. I didn't know anyone. I didn't have any contacts. And when I started, you have your friends in the school, you have your first roommate, you have your first lunch in the cafeteria. You don't have your parents anymore to help you doing laundry. You don't have anyone around you, so you have to become more independent. That's one of the things that I would say as an international student that you really learn coming to another country. Is like you need to learn how to be independent and how to manage to do things on your own and by yourself. So that's kind of the story there. Yeah. So I think that everyone as a 21-year-old, 20-year-old, when they are graduating from college, they don't really know what they want to become as an adult. So it's your first step. You need to make the big decision of what field do I want to be working on for the next couple of years. Obviously, when you're young, you can make a few changes in your career. But the first job is always going to bring you that, oh, this is my workspace. This is my first job. This is what I want to like doing. I don't like doing. So it's a very important decision. So for me, while I was in college, I was lucky enough to be working part-time on different jobs. So I worked in sales, I worked at Starbucks, I was working as a coach. So I had multiple jobs in the middle. But then when you have to come to the decision of, okay, what do I do next? I was just feeling that the business world is very wide. So you need to make a decision. Okay, in the business side, what is going to help me in the future more? And obviously, as I was from Spain, I was always thinking about working remote because, I always dreamt of I want to work in the US, but being able to go home for 3-4 months per year and still work and have that option to go back home. So when you think about remote jobs, the first thing that comes to mind is working in IT. Obviously, there's more jobs that work remotely, but that's nowadays. If you look back to before COVID 2021, it wasn't that broad to be able to work remotely. So that was my first idea. I want to work remote. I'm going to focus on working on IT. And that's how it all started, to just focusing on finding an IT role, obviously with a business initiative as well. Yeah, so when I graduated from college in May, normally after college, you would go back to your hometown, go there, spend the summer, and then I was going to come back after a couple of months of summer. So when I enrolled into the Agile coaching program, obviously I was back home. I had to do most of the classes remotely because I was enjoying my summer. So I remember I was in a hotel, everyone was sleeping. So I just decided I see it was 2 or 3 a.m. in the morning. I have to be on the call so that I could be part of the program. So I just locked myself in the bathroom of the hotel, 2 or 3 a.m. in the morning, turned the lights on, and then I was just having the class there, very late at night and everyone falling asleep. So I didn't want to disturb anyone. So that's how I ended up being on a class, from the bathroom. And I think it was in Mallorca. I was just on the beach. So that was the story there. I think that nowadays, with all the AI tools that we have and all the learning opportunities that we have with the AI world, I think it's much easier for someone that is interested in IT to be able to do a successful job of, first of all, learning the tools and learning how to do something. And then second of all, having all these resources as your buddies, right? Because nowadays, you don't know how to code something. You don't know how to formulate an email for a stakeholder. you don't know how to navigate into a system, specifically in Salesforce. Well, you go to Ivy, you go to ChatGPT, you have Microsoft Copilot. You have many options to help you summarize meetings, to document yourself, to send, a lot of information out there with AI tools. So I feel like definitely helpful. I would say that if you're interested in having a job and finding a position where you are happy with yourself and you have a good position in life, where you have a good job, you need to invest in your knowledge. You have to invest in your own training. You cannot expect that people just give it everything to your hand, like kind of that expression that, oh, just handing everything on a silver plate. Well, that's not how it works. If you want to learn something, you need to spend 2-3 hours per day. The same as if you were studying for an exam. The same if you were to be a good soccer player. Do you think that a good soccer player just becomes a good soccer player without any training, without any practice? Well, no, it takes everyday practice, hours, and people. It's not just, you don't become a good player, but just train yourself. You need to have a mentor. You need to have a coach that helps you with specific skills. So I think that when you are in that position where you don't know, you're entering into a world that you don't understand, it's always good to have a mentor or some people to help you guide through the path. And I remember, I met Andre when I started with this program, and he was suggesting me a book to read. He was suggesting me like a website or a YouTube channel to learn about specific tools. Those kind of things where you have people with experience helping you and guiding you to how you can improve. But at the end of the day, it comes to you. Like, you can have the best mentor in the world, but if you don't spend hours learning or trying to teach yourself, no one can do that for you. Like, they kind of put knowledge in your head. They can help you and they can facilitate those things for you, but it becomes your decision to spend time learning those things and investing time doing that. I feel like a lot of people, my group friends, they didn't believe it either, or my family, they were surprised they were saying, oh, that's the American dream. Well, I don't think that everyone in the US, they just have that opportunity. I just felt like there was a lot of people in my position. There is a lot of people that have taken months to take out certifications. There were a lot of people that, being 6 years learning something or 6 months learning something. The important thing to me is, how can he stand out from other candidates that have 5, 6 years, 7 years of experience? So to me I was going to the interviews knowing my stuff, right? So you want to do a lot of interview prep, going to the interview sessions with all the mentors, making sure you have. I remember I created a Word document, because obviously back in the day we didn't have like the whole ChatGPT tell me questions. We had to Google questions, we had to put the answers, I remember doing a 25-page document of question, answer, of BA roles, product manager roles, and memorizing all those questions, memorizing all those answers. So every time I went to an interview, I was nailing the answers as if I was working in the field for 7 years, because it doesn't matter how much years of experience you have. If you go to an interview and you don't know how to express your knowledge, or you don't know how to talk to people, it really doesn't matter, right? So you need to become a good people skills and making sure you know how to talk in public, or you know how to deal with pressure, you know how to defend yourself when they ask you a tough question. Those are the important things that you don't only need to memorize, you need to practice. How do you practice an interview? You can do it in front of the mirror, you can do it with your girlfriend, you can do it with your parents, but you can also do it with your mentors, and then they can actually help you to improve your answers, right? And they will put you into that staff position where it's not easy to do an interview when 6 senior people are looking to you and just asking you questions, because you will have those positions or the situations where the whole team is interviewing you. Is the director, is the HR person, is 3 BAs, 2 developers. You're going to have to answer to their questions, and they need to like you. A lot of times, even if you are very capable of doing something, if you're just awful or you're just not a nice person, they're not going to hire you. So you need to become likable in that sense. So that's also something that you need to practice, Yeah, I would say that definitely as an international student, just the first step of getting called into interviews is going to be harder, because when you submit your application, a lot of people, they have the question of, do you require a sponsorship in the future? A lot of people, they just discourage you if you say yes. So just by default, I was getting half the interviews as a normal person in the US citizen will get. So first of all, I was getting half of the interviews. What matters is if you do 35 interviews and you do them all bad, but if you do 2 and those 2 are great, that's all you need. That all you need is one good interview that will get you that position. You don't need to have 50 interviews. Again, if you have 50 interviews and you don't get hired, you're doing something wrong. You need to practice something better, or you need to practice something more. All you need is one opportunity, 2 opportunities, and if you're really the candidate or the best person for that job, you're gonna get the position. So first of all, you just need to stand out when you get the chance, because I understand that the chance is hard to get, but once you get it, all you need is one good interview. That's all you need. Then from there, obviously, how do you get a company to give you the H1B? They're not gonna give and pay, the 10,000, 50,000 application that is dollars that the company has to pay for you because they believe in you. They want to keep you in the long term. Do you think they do that for any person in the company? Well, no. You need to, first of all, you need to be resourceful. You need to be trusted in the company. You need to be a key member of the team. They need to feel like without you, they will be losing a big asset. So it's not just about doing the job just enough to not get fired. That's never a position where you need to be as an international student. If you really want to have your H1B visa and make sure that you are going to be in the company in the long term, you need to stand out. Like, you need to be a key asset of the team, and because you are needed, like you're a part of the team. If you're gone, they're going to lose a big asset. So that was for me the key point since I started. What can I do to stand out of the team? What can I do to be a specific team member that if you go to the reporting, I'm the only person who knows how to do that, or I'm the only person who can do something, or I'm the only person who is innovative, or I'm the only person who owns a process. Those kind of things where they say, oh, what are we going to do if we lose him? Well, you're going to lose a lot of things. So that's where you get to the position where you're a key asset of the team. Yeah, so they're going to give you that because you tell them, being sure you were available for the people. That was a challenge because when I was interviewing, I was during summer. Maybe a recruiter was calling me at 9 a.m. in the morning. I was in the pool. I was just enjoying there, just chilling. And then suddenly you need to make yourself available. I've seen people rejecting interviews because they were having a lunch with a friend or because they were dinner with their family. Like, I've seen people not making themselves available and just putting excuses, saying, if a recruiter calls you and you tell them, hey, call me next week. By next week, they're gonna find another candidate. Like, you're not available, you're not gonna get hired. So I made sure that I was making myself available. It didn't matter if it was 7 a.m., 10 p.m., I was in the pool, I was doing something else. I was trying to make myself available because that's one of the key things that you need to do. Like, you're in the market, you need to put as much effort as you can to make sure that you can get an interview at any time. I honestly didn't have it because when I went to my first recruiter interview, I've already done 25 interviews with the mentors. Like, I was already prepared. Like, by the time I started doing my first interview, I've been doing fake interviews for the last month. I've been doing 25, 30 interviews already.
Yeah, so like you said, I'm currently a Scrum Master at Kroger. Prior to my role at Kroger, I was an IT consultant for Sogeti. And my very first role in Agile was a BA role at Principal Financial Group. Yeah, so like many others who did the Agile Coach Bootcamp, I come from a non-technical background. In college, I studied PPEL, which is philosophy, politics, economics, and law. So very different from what I do now. And I had originally planned on going to law school. But the further along I got in my major, the more I realized I didn't want to do that anymore. I wanted a career that had a better work-life balance, more freedom and flexibility. And I planned on doing Teach for America after graduation, but then COVID hit and the whole world shut down. And it was around that time that I was lucky enough to get introduced to the Agile Coach program, and the
Yeah.
rest is history. Yeah, it's so random, but my best friend went to the dog park one morning in Scottsdale, and she's super outgoing. She struck up a conversation with someone named Diana, and her husband had recently graduated from the program and become a Scrum Master.
Yeah.
And Diana asked her if she was interested in maybe doing the program. And my friend was like, I'm not, but I actually know someone who might be.
Yeah.
Around that time, I literally had no idea what I was doing with my life. I was really looking for an opportunity. So it was just perfect timing. And I'm really grateful for the opportunity. Yeah, so as a BA, I spent a lot of time in meetings with various stakeholders to determine what the business required from the dev team. I participated in all of the Scrum ceremonies, and I spent a lot of time writing and refining user stories, keeping the backlog prioritized, stuff like that. I also did a lot of documentation as well. And I knew I eventually wanted to transition into a Scrum Master role. So as a BA, I took every opportunity I could to help out the Scrum Master on my team with facilitating ceremonies. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think starting with a BA role is a really good idea. I was able to get exposed to a lot of technical language and, like I said, participate in the Scrum ceremonies.
Yeah.
But yeah, working remotely was really nice. I loved the freedom, and sometimes I
Yeah.
would almost feel guilty with the free time I had in between my meetings. I think that was
Yeah.
kind of an adjustment or transition going into my first remote role. But the team structure, I think I was on a team of about 10 people. So it was myself, the Scrum Master, and then about 8 devs. All of my devs were offshore in India. So I worked with my team in the morning, the first few hours of the day. It was nighttime for them. And then I spent the rest of my day kind of heads down working on user stories and documentation. So yeah, it was definitely a big adjustment, not having the same face-to-face interaction with my coworkers. And then sometimes, like, if you have a question for the team or something, just having to wait until the next day. But I feel like I learned and adjusted pretty quickly to it. So, but just challenges in general, I think of being in my first IT role, definitely felt some
Yeah.
imposter syndrome in the beginning.
Yeah.
But, I want to encourage anyone listening, like, if you feel imposter syndrome, like, that's not a bad thing. Like, that's a sign that you're getting out of your comfort zone and you're growing. So kind of lean into that. Don't be afraid to ask questions and get off mute in meetings. Like, when I first started in my first role, I was so scared to come off mute and ask questions. But that's really, how you're going to improve. That's how you're going to grow. So
Yeah.
don't be afraid to put yourself out there. So having a background as a yoga teacher is interesting. I think that having that mindfulness and self-awareness is really, really crucial as a leader. So some ways that background has helped me is really being able to pause and go inward, take a deep breath before I react to something. I'm in like a high stress situation, or if I'm working with a difficult stakeholder, or I'm facilitating conflict between, two team members, just having that mindful awareness and being able to pause before reacting, I think is really helpful. Absolutely. That's a great question. And I just want to say to anyone listening that you can do this. Like, I know it seems daunting and it seems scary to embark in something new, but let my story be proof and inspiration that it's
Yeah.
possible. Um, yeah, I think coming from a non-IT background and studying something like, political science in college, I faced a lot of imposter syndrome and a lot of doubt, especially going into my first role. I just felt like, can I really do this? Like, who am I to think that I'm going to get this role in IT just with no experience in it? And when I had that mindset at first, when I was interviewing, I wasn't getting anywhere,
Yeah.
shocker. Like,
Yeah.
if you don't believe in yourself, like, no one else is going to believe in you. And
Yeah.
I remember like having a phone call with you, and I was so like down on myself and I was like, I don't know if I can do this. Like maybe I should just give up. And you really encouraged me to just keep pushing, keep trying, putting myself out there. Like just you reminded me that I did deserve it. Like I'd put in a lot of hard work in the boot camp and I had, what it took. And so I think once I shifted my mindset and really started to believe that I was capable and worthy of landing a role, that's kind of when everything changed for me and when I
Yeah.
got the first offer. So it was definitely a big transition, but I really think my background as a BA really set me up for success in my first Scrum Master role. Like just having that experience to lean on of being a part of a Scrum team, like seeing how the different ceremonies were facilitated, kind of being exposed to that more technical language really helped me out. But yeah, it was a big transition. I like immediately started as a scrum master over 3 teams, and so it
Wow.
was definitely a lot at first, and there was a learning curve, but like I said, I think it's important to put yourself in situations that are out of your comfort zone because that's the only way you're
Yeah.
gonna grow, and I feel like I really just dove right in, and I was able to learn a lot in the process, so when I first started in my first Scrum Master role, I had an amazing Scrum Master at the company who kind of took me under his wing and was able to be a great guide and mentor for me, so I'm really grateful for that, and I also just really took the time to set up one-on-one meetings with like important people at the company and just ask them questions, ask them for advice, and try to learn as much as I could. And another thing that really helped me too was setting up one-on-ones with all of my different team members and just really focusing on building an individual relationship with each of them. I think is actually pretty rare, a lot of the developers I don't know, I don't feel like they always get treated as individuals. So I think really getting curious about them and their needs and stuff. Yeah, I mean, I think I would just reiterate, like I said, the best way to grow is putting yourself in situations that are out of your comfort zone. Like I said, leaning into the imposter syndrome, kind of fake it till you make it,
Yeah.
feel the fear and do it anyways. And yeah, not being afraid to ask questions, like I said,
Yeah.
like, not
Yeah.
being afraid to come off mute. I know it sounds like a small thing, but, like, in the beginning, it
Yeah.
can be really intimidating.
Yeah.
And then lastly, like, lean on the Agile Coach community. That has been so supportive for me, is just staying connected. I've been in IT for 3 years now, but I still, stay in touch with so many people in the program, and I feel like, yeah, that's been really beneficial, and it helps me to continuously grow my knowledge and improve. It's been so amazing. Like I'm just so grateful for the opportunity still. I feel like a big part of it is making connections with your team members and it's really rewarding to make those one-on-one connections and to
Mhm.
watch your team members grow as individuals and coach your team towards success and it's I don't know, it's just a really good feeling. And also, I feel like on a personal level, I've grown a ton just in the last 3 years,
Yeah.
just professionally and personally. I feel like being in these types of leadership roles have really, like I said, forced me out of my comfort zone, forced me to just continuously improve and better myself. And yeah, so
Yeah.
it's a great space to be in, and I also think if you're going for a BA or a Scrum Master role, like, you can expect, to most likely work remotely, maybe a hybrid role, and that is another really big benefit, I think, is just the freedom and the flexibility, the work-life balance, like, I
Yeah.
just got back from traveling for 5 months, and I was able to work from anywhere, so,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's another big perk. Yeah, I mean, I just feel so grateful and so blessed. But yeah, it's been amazing, and I do think, at first that imposter syndrome that I keep saying, like, came into play where it's like, wow, like, I'm when did I start making 6 figures? Probably 22, 23. And I was
So
like, wow,
you,
like, how am
yeah.
I like, I'm so young, like, I can't believe, like, I'm making this kind of salary. And so I think yeah, just pushing past that. Like if you're young, like you can do it. You are capable, like dream big, like
Quick background. I'm originally from India, so when I was 18 years old, I moved to the US to go attend college at Purdue as an undergrad. Started off my college career in aerospace engineering, but right after the first semester, I realized that being an international student, I won't be able to be eligible to get most of the jobs out there as an aerospace engineer due to my citizenship and visa restrictions and a lot of the jobs requiring security clearance. So I just got creative and I was like, okay, what is the next closest engineering to aerospace engineering? Which I chose mechanical engineering, where I had the option to go to aviation and aerospace, do things there as well, but also had the backup to go in the automobile or just in general, like structural design and things like that. That was going well, and I got into my co-op, was learning a lot and just understanding just the basics of engineering. But then I just realized that this is something that I don't want to do. I don't want to do the same job over and over again, do the same thing over and over again. It got very monotonous during my first couple of internships, just doing the same thing as an engineer and just focused on fixing small things. Was lucky enough to meet, got some guidance from Vivek and his wife Pavitra, and just a mutual connection. So that's kind of been the pivoting moment for me in my career. I didn't really know that being a Scrum Master or a product owner or a non-coding side of tech industry really existed. So once I figured that out, I really put my time and effort to understand that piece, to get the product thinking, understand how to think like a product manager, how to put customers first, and eventually pivot. So right after I finished college, I had the opportunity to work as a PM, and from there it's been no looking back. So appreciate all the insights there. Yeah, totally. I think that was kind of the key of the true like experience of being a product manager. Is like the biggest hurdles were to understand how to work with software engineers, right? My experience was to work with people who build physical products. So changing my thinking to something that's digital, completely digital. What goes in building something digital? How do you talk with somebody who comes from a technology background? How do you bring those people's skills? I mean, English is my second language, so I really had to hone in on understanding what are the right verbiage to say in somebody who comes from a technical background. How do you work with stakeholders? How do you work with people who are 15, 20, 30, 50 years in their career and have a lot of experience in this field? Those were like the biggest challenges. And a lot of the times when I first started, I was like, okay, I need to learn coding. I need to learn how to write software, understand how to read architecture documents, things like that. But as I went through the program and as I worked on building my own projects and working with developers, I just realized that that's just a small piece of it. And as a product person or as somebody leading an agile team, it's not really your job. You want to be sure to provide resources for your team and be the support person there. So that was kind of the big piece there, was just to master my soft skills, understand negotiation, communication, and working with different stakeholders. Yeah, definitely. It's not an easy battle, and shout out to everybody who was an international student out there and is hustling and making it happen. For me, I realized from just even looking for internships, right, during in college as well, it's a numbers game. Like, you're not eligible for a lot of the jobs that are out there as compared to somebody who was born and brought up in the US. So it's purely a numbers game. Apply as much as you can, and then just don't get disappointed. Don't take it personally that you got rejected just in the application phase or just in the screening phase just because you're an international student. There are jobs out there that require specialized talent from international students. So that was the piece that I had to understand, is like, just let it go mentally, like just keep applying, and work on your communication skills. Learn what is important to a recruiter. How can you be resourceful for them to help you guide forward? Like, hey, these are the items in the job description. These are directly have experience here. Call it out when you talk to somebody, to talk to your recruiter. So just learning that piece was important. And then when you do get an interview, the second piece was, how do you do good in an interview? Like I said, soft skills were key. Understanding what verbiage to use, understanding what is important to them. Really, this also is kind of like a product manager to put the customer hat. So in the end, to summarize everything, was just purely a numbers game. Is to keep applying, go find people who are already in the same positions that you want to be in, network with them crazy. And last thing I would say is there's a lot of noise out there in terms of resources and how to prepare, and everybody's a financial or YouTube like guru. You can buy some sort of like a watch their videos and like understand, like do their program and things. So it's really important to cut through the noise, and that's why I'm so thankful for the Agile Academy and Vivek and Pavitra, is just to help me get out there, just get that resources right on my fingertips, where somebody that I talked with former students of the Agile Academy as well, get their perspective and how they were, and just the ability to practice, do interview preps, do mock interviews with experts, hiring managers, and VPs of products. That just built my confidence up so much. I think proactive is a very important piece, especially if you're changing industries, and just as an international student, you want to start 6 months before everybody else is starting. So you have that head start. You're going into it prepared. So you screw up in interviews that you don't want, so you can do good in interviews that you do want. So that proactive piece is very, very critical. As a product manager, my first role was a product manager for insurance marketing and product management at an insurance technology company. So the goal, my tasks or the responsibilities were to be that to bridge the gap between an engineering and design teams with marketing and business side of things, as well as get insights from our end users. So our end users, the tools and technologies we're building goes in powering the top insurance companies in the world. So those are my clients, those are my customers. So my goal was to get their feedback, see if it's good feedback, or is this something that we can actually do, run it with my engineering and design teams, get the insight from the market and build it. So I was kind of the jack of all trades. So you need to know a little bit of engineering, how to talk to a little bit of designers, how you present yourself with executive presence in front of customers. These clients are like big companies. They do billions of dollars in revenue a year. So how you present yourself and then help them understand their problems and how our products will solve it. And as you get insights in the market, like, okay, this is not working, or consumer behavior is shifting to something else, implement that so they don't have to ask for it. It's already there for them. So that was kind of my job, was to conducting market research, prioritizing what's already in our backlog, collaborating with a lot of different types of roles, so like legal, marketing, designers, everybody basically that takes to run a company, and ensuring that we're releasing everything on time. So it was kind of a mix between a product manager and a product owner combined together. Yeah, totally.
Bring value.
I had no corporate experience or no domain experience, and so far I've worked in like telecom, I've worked in consulting, worked in aviation and insurance, so like just all over the spectrum. But I think oftentimes you forget that it's just like talking to somebody, like how you present yourself in a networking event is the same as how you would present yourself in front of a stakeholder. So those executive presence skills, I did read a lot of books, read a lot of like implementations on how to talk to people, how to bring that executive presence, how to add value as just by talking to somebody rather than like making an ask first. So just understanding a little bit of like human psychology, human behaviors, and implementing it. And a lot of it was just getting over my fears of just like, oh, maybe I'm not qualified, or maybe I'm not like the best person to do it. Just go and do it, and let them reject, or let them say like, oh, this is not good enough, without even like, instead of just you saying, no, I can't do this before, let the other person say, let them say it. And a lot of the times you realize as you do it, it's like, you did really well, you did really good. So it was just that to digest that, the difficult pill that I can do this and go in and just go do it. But yeah, the win really was like, I work as a senior product manager right now, and I have my own set of portfolio that I'm responsible for. It's kind of like being a mini CEO for a small piece of the business that you take it and you run it. So that was kind of the win. I guess I get to interact with everybody from sales all the way to design. So I'm responsible for that whole piece. In order to equip myself to get that win, I think networking was key. I went to a lot of in-person events that I had no idea half the events, like talk about product-led code, PLG, no idea, cloud stuff, no idea, like nothing, like without even just like thinking about it. Oh, this is an event happening next door to me, I'm definitely going to check it out, shake a few hands, introduce myself. And so networking was a key piece there. And then was just to learn like how to present, how to be more presentable in front of people from a diverse set of backgrounds. So like I said, executive presence was key. So I did a lot of courses and read a lot of books on executive presence specifically. And then started figuring out how a technology business works. How does a technology company makes money? What is important to them? What is important to their clients? What does the users care about? Those were kind of the key aspects of it, of me pivoting into more of a senior role. For specifics of anybody who's like trying to pivot into something more like leadership role or more product focused from not from an entry level perspective. So you have to learn your product basics. You need to understand like what a discovery means. How do you find their problem? How do you map that problem? How you're going to solve this problem? And I think leadership is also very important. So different management styles. How do you develop a team? How do you drive innovation in a team? And then the behavioral aspect of it as well, right? Like how do you map your career as like a product manager? What is that going to look like? What is the next upcoming big thing in the industry? How do you be more equipped for it? And the last piece is just the product leadership. How do you prioritize something that's never been done before? Like there's no sizing, right? You're building something from net new. So what is like a really tough roadmap prioritization look like for you? Promoting challenging visions, and then reviving like underperforming teams, right? As a big goal as a product manager is to make sure your teams are performing well. There's enough development happening. There's problems being solved. There's value being added to our end users. So be able to change my perspective from an engineer to the customer and give that perspective. Like we're not a revenue driven company. We're a user driven or a customer driven company or a product driven company. That was kind of the mindset shift that I had to do, and which resulted in my role that I currently have. I think the first thing is to get connected with people who have the right advice for you, right? So in my case, it was the Agile Academy and Vivek and Peter who've been through this journey before as an international student that could give me that advice and point me to the right direction. So having somebody who's already done what you're trying to accomplish is the key. Give like the most important advice there. And then the second thing is just prepare. Like a lot of the time is that when I work with people in interview prep, they just don't prepare for interviews. Like it is a skill how to interview effectively. It is a skill to be able to answer questions, and it is a skill to deny questions that you don't know in a very skillful and a very diplomatic and in a more like a executive way, which also comes out that, hey, I don't know something, so I'm accepting that. You can't know everything. So that's kind of like the top items. And then I would also say like read a few books, but with understanding and taking notes, right? It's not just a consumption machine where you're just reading books, but there's no understanding or note taking, right? Then we turn into a robot just spitting out something. So that's kind of the key areas. And then last thing I'll say is, as an international students, we have to accept the fact that you're going to get lower interviews as compared to somebody who is a U.S. citizen or from here. So you have to be really, really, really prepared when you get in that interview. So having mock interviews with somebody
Awesome.
who is in the field, with networking with people and getting feedback. So that's kind of the key there. I totally believe you don't really need to go to college to become a product manager. There's enough information out there. There's enough resources out there. There's enough like skilled trainings that you could do to become a product manager. And if you go on the internet, there is no like such degree as Bachelor's of Science in Product Management. That just doesn't exist. So even what you're learning in your school is so broad that you have to eventually then learn again how to be a product manager after all this technology information that you learn. But having the ability to just learn straight like what is important as a product manager, how can you be successful, talking to people who've already done this, I think you're so far ahead of somebody who is getting a CS degree or a technology degree and then IT degree and then understanding that and then getting into it. Yeah, it certainly was. I think historically what people think of fraternities is just like a bunch of guys and gals just partying all the time and enjoying life a little too much. But I think it's also like I touched on a little bit. I think a key part of a product manager is to build teams and drive influence without having any influence. Like you have to get stuff done, but nobody reports to you. It's like your real job basically. So be the responsible one there, and like how while still having fun, like driving changes. Okay, this needs to be clean today. This needs to be done today. There's only 5 of us. How do you prioritize things like that? So that piece was the true like personal like development piece, like where I built my communication skills and build the skills of leading a team without having influence. So that was the piece that was really helpful for me for my career. There's 2 pieces of it. I think coming from an immigrant background, I think we value family a lot, and I value my parents and my loved ones a lot. So it's just giving back to them and just doing the most amount of things I can, learn the fastest that anybody else can, and giving it back to my family and my loved ones, and so providing back for them and helping them retire. Kind of that's one piece of the why. And the second piece of the why is for my own self. I love traveling. I've been to 51 countries and I want to do more and more. And what better way to do it is to be that person that creates that technology and makes the world even like closer than it already is. So flights is a piece of it. That's why I worked in aviation. I really enjoyed the piece of like connecting two people together. And then same thing with technologies. Like we use a cell phone today. We're chatting on Zoom today. That wasn't possible 5-10 years ago. So being that person that connects different backgrounds and different groups together and make it a small one big world. And that's kind of the why. I know it's not really like a super detailed why, but that's what keeps me going.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's very interesting because, yeah, coaching D1 basketball, I never thought about doing anything else. And we had a friend who was a Scrum Master or Agilist at the time. We didn't really know what it was. Like, what is a Scrum Master, right? Just like I get asked now a lot today. But we had a friend that was doing it, and I never really thought about it before. But I remember coaching my last season. We had come to the end of the season. We were in off season, and I just started having a couple more conversations with my wife and with our mentors about what I wanted life to look like and just different things like that. And I think I just come to a turning point mentally, physically, with the way that I wanted things to look. And so I started to ask our friend a couple more questions. And the great thing was my wife was ready to transition a little bit before me utilize my coaching skills in another environment, because I think that was initially the scariest part is what do you do if you're not going to coach, right? And so where can I utilize my skills? And after a few conversations, learning about being a Scrum Master, how you're helping teams, how you're serving leaders or you're coaching and facilitating, I was like, oh, I can do that, right? I may not know the thing, but I can figure out how to help build teams. I can work with a multitude of different backgrounds and people. So that was really where my journey kind of took off. And I'm thankful that once I jumped into it and started to learn about it, I never really looked back. Yeah, and I think for any industry that you're in, I mean, I've met so many Scrum Masters from different fields, people that went to law school, medical school, all kinds of things. Most people aren't already in tech that become Scrum Masters. Some of them come from salespeople or in things like that. So I think one of the interesting things is you just have to learn to take what you've already been successful at or done and apply that to this industry, and you can be successful at it. So whether you're detail oriented or you're a very big team building, you build relationships really well, take that strength and hone that and then learn the other skills along the way. And I think you can do very well. Well, yeah, and that's the key word is business value. And what I've seen is when you have multiple people come into a team or even one person come into a team, it's a completely new team. So based on the skill sets of different folks, you may have 6 engineers on a team and 2 of them can do the brunt of the work because they're really seasoned and focused. And you may have 4 that don't. So the way I've always taught teams is it's not about slowing down, but sometimes you have to slow down to speed up, right? And so pair programming has been really good. Just sitting with someone as they work has been really good. And I really just try to help teams understand the focus and the mindset behind that. Because what I've seen is if you don't do that, long term, it's going to hurt you. If you do it, long term, it will help you because now everyone's more on a level playing field. And then outside of that, going back to business value specifically, most of the time your team is working on 3 or 4 efforts at the same time. So you really have to figure out what percentage of work do you want to put towards the highest impact, right? When does that work due? Is it 3 months? Is it next sprint? Like, what does that deliverable look like? And then really focus on that, because a lot of times we try to pull in a bunch of tech debt, or if someone isn't at season, we try to give them this work that may be tech debt, but it's not going towards the asset business value. So we really focus in on that, and we take time to have meetings to talk about that and make sure it's very accurate. And I help our product owner or product manager, whoever's setting that vision for the team, I help them help the team understand that clearly. And I think that's very important because a lot of time we're working in the micro for a macro thing, but we don't always know what we're working towards, right? We're building bricks, but we don't know why we're building the wall or we're building a castle, right? Ever. So I really try to help people hone in on that so they know what they're doing. Yes. So the roadmap, whatever you use for roadmap, whether it's Excel or Miro or wherever you're using, I have learned to implement the roadmap in at least 2 of the 5 traditional ceremonies that we run, right? So sprint planning, backlog refinement, we start with the roadmap and we show ourselves as a star. This is where we are and this is where we're trying to go. So it's at the forefront of everybody's mind. The entire team knows where we're going. They know what we're doing. They know which work is most important now and what things we're working on, maybe 10% each sprint for the future, right? But you have to start the call and keep those tools accurate, because if you just have the tool in a SharePoint or you have it in a Miro or somewhere, nobody's checking it. So make it a part of your call. It can literally take 2 minutes of you going over it and say, hey team, as a reminder, this is what we completed last week. This is what we're doing now. This is where we are, but this is why, right? And I've just learned that sets the stage really well for your calls. You don't have to do it every time, but the longer calls that you have that an hour and a half or longer, start those calls with your roadmap. Understand the vision, keep it at the forefront, and don't let it be forgotten. Yeah, everybody wants a sense of empowerment. Like they are contributing something valuable to the team, like they're having an impact. And if you feel like a pawn, that's probably not what you want to feel like, right?
Right.
That's
Yeah.
part of my job, and what I take ownership of is making sure folks on the team feel empowered. And if they don't, why?
Right.
How are we being led? And it's not anybody's fault, but it's a team thing. And that's what I always try to make sure of, even as I have one-on-ones and things like that. It's like, if I hear certain concerns, I do my best to bring it back to a team thing, because I think we often forget that. Because as engineers, and even in my role, we get so like siloed to what we're doing, we forget we're part of a team. So that's how I keep that at the forefront. Sure.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's really important. And let me give a basketball example. It's really important to understand who your captain is. Is my point guard or my four man, like whoever that is. So most teams, the leader of that team is probably one of the engineers, maybe a tech lead, an analyst, the PO, whoever that is. Talk to that person, because that's the person you have to help them understand the value of that. And if you talk to your tech lead and they're like, oh yeah, okay, I get what you're saying now. I get how it'll help us down the road. I get how it'll be like pain off my shoulders, right? If you help them understand that, then they'll jump into it, and then it'll become more of a thing, because the team is gonna follow someone. It's gonna follow someone on the team. So I have one-on-one with my tech lead. We talk about how that may help. And I had used that person as examples of, hey, can you bring this person with you? This new engineer, can you bring them with you as a, help them learn, let them basically shadow you for a sprint or two, and teach them some of the ways that you're coding, or some of the ways that you've been successful. And that will lead into other things, right? So maybe our next highest developer, second or third person, whatever, may be able to help another new member of the team. And now you have multiple people flowing, and it won't last like that forever. I think we forget what like the short term really is. So that's how I've helped in the front end. I find the people who I know are leaders in the team. I talk to them one-on-one, and I help them understand the value of how this will help us in the future. Yeah, and another way too is, I mean, we work in the corporate world, right? So a lot of times things are done when there's a contract to it or something like that, right? So if you think about a Scrum Master, one of the things we help the team do is we come up with team agreements, right? So whether you've been with the team for a long time and you need to revisit it, or whether you're new with the team and you need to come back to it, it's how do you put that there? How do you ask follow-up questions to figure out, how do we want to grow as a team? We want to practice continuous improvement. So we want to get to a certain level of this good, but then we don't want to stagnate out. It may stagnate out for you, but we want to go up again. So how do we continuously practice that? And if you have a team agreement that talks about pair programming, then you already know that maybe every 5 sprints, every 4 sprints, we're going to practice that no matter where we are. Because maybe somebody's learned something new. Maybe they went off and got a new certification. Maybe they worked on a story that they've never had to work on before, and they learned something from it that they could teach the team. So we're always practicing that and looking for ways to continuously grow. So it can't be a one-off thing. It's got to be continuous. Yeah, not specific with our team, but overall. So we do like product lunch and learns. So like our product owners run that, and they invite folks into that. We do agile lunch and learns. So we hear a lot of like do agile, but we want to teach people to be agile, and it's a little bit different, right? So we do that. We do a lot of design strategy, lunch and learns and things like that. So it's really teaching people overall the process, because as you're in an org, and this is where you start to think more high level, right? Because teams are in teams. But as you start to think high level, there's a lot of people involved. And if you want to understand that picture and understand what you're doing and how that applies to this bigger org, sometimes it's good to understand how your design team sees things, how they work on things. Why does that impact you as an engineer, whether you're front end or back end, right? The design team is doing things for a certain way. How do they interact with users? You may have never talked with a stakeholder or user before, but how is your team doing that? So you can start to understand, okay, I understand why things are switching so much. I understand why they want things this way, or why we do it this way. I wouldn't do it that way, but they want it that way. And you start to understand a little bit more, and it gives, again, it goes back to that empowerment piece, and it helps you own what you're doing. Well, a very wise person once told me that you truly know something when you can teach it. And I took that to heart a long time ago. And so I practiced that with my teams. And so like, let me give a very small example. We're at stand up, it's 15 minutes a day. And it's very easy for us during that call for folks to say, hey, I'm sharing my screen, right? As a Scrum Master during that time, if need be, not all the time, but hey, Darian, can you move that story from to do in progress I started working on it last week, right? That's very easy for me to do forever. Whether I've been with the team for a long time or I'm new to the team, it's very easy for me to do. But if I want the work to be more accurate, if I want our story points or our burn down chart or whatever that looks like to be more accurate, I really need to start coaching the team on how to do that themselves. Because if not, I'm giving them a disservice, right? So a coach is not there to do, a coach is there to teach, a coach is there to coach. So I started from me and my personality, I know myself, right? I had to start making no's fun. So instead of just being rigid and saying no, I was like, nope, can't do that. Working on continuous improvement. The team has to start taking right. And it sounds fun, but it does create some tensity sometimes, some tense. But at the same time, I have to repeat that, and I repeat it over and over again until people start doing it. And it may take multiple sprints. And I think that's where some people may get frustrated with, patience. But I'm okay with that because I understand the long-term goal of that. And so now with teams that I may work with, I'm not moving stories. So I'm barely, I may not even be sharing my screen, but I'm not moving stories. Stories are already there. So when we pull up our screen, our stand-ups or daily, whatever you call it, everything's accurate. And we can get to talking about it instead of taking time moving stories around. And I think it creates such a more effective meeting. But had I not started to say no, or had I not started to coach, that wouldn't be that way, right? That's one like small example on the very basic level. And it goes back to thinking micro level with the team and high level, right? Because if you understand what your product manager or the director of your org, your program, if you understand what truly matters to them, you'll understand what to do. So for instance, if my product manager or my director really cares about story points, I need to really coach how we operate in that space. If my product manager or my directly really just cares about the business value and what we're actually delivering at the end of the sprint, that may look a little bit different. But the team need to understand that, because then I don't have to be so strict just about story points, but I need to be more strict about what are we actually pulling into the sprint. And it can look a little bit different. And sometimes we focus too much on both, where we're putting stress on the team to do a certain thing, when one is really more important than the other. And so you have to be a little bit just, both are important, but you can't have, everything can't be the top priority, right? Something needs to be take one spot, two spot. So you really just have to help them with that. And then those small things will get better as people understand that. No, that's something I have to do myself. I think, and that's not a bad thing for our leadership at any level, at any company. I think sometimes we get comfortable with what we're doing and we're doing it for so long, we just don't naturally revisit why. Or we don't naturally revisit that. So that's part of what I take ownership of when, my teams are doing certain things throughout the day. I take ownership of asking those questions. Hey, I realize you asked a few questions on this call about this. Tell me more about that. Why did you know, where were you coming from? What was your mindset or your perspective when you asked the team that question? Or why were you wondering that when we gave that demo? And as I do that, I start to understand more. And now I can help my team. And now our team can help you. Then we can ultimately help our users and stakeholders to be better. But I think sometimes we don't go that extra level and ask those questions, whether it's from fear and we don't want to, or it's we don't see the value in it. But I think anything that you can ask is valuable. And I truly believe the more questions you ask, the better questions you ask, the better you'll be. If you take those things and just truly use them. And man, I love talking about AI. It's crazy how fast it's evolving, but I know we're nowhere near where it's going to be, especially within like the next year. Like I can't imagine next year, this time where we're going to be with that. One thing I've been observing from multiple Scrum Masters from different companies around the world is every company's kind of coming up with their own form of it, right? Because you want something internal that's not fully spread out. And so one thing, start using it with your team in small ways. Figure out a way to use it, whether it's you and you can suggest it to the team during a sprint planning or something like, hey, why don't we use AI for this, right? Like small ways I've started to use it is utilizing it in meetings to give overviews or recaps at the end. Take note of action items, right? Because a lot of times we forget what I said on the call, what I was going to do. And we expect one person like the bookkeeper or whoever that is to keep those things and then send them out. But that's a small way you can use AI if you're recording meetings or something like that, is the action items that are left at the end or talk throughout. Some different AI versions I've seen will actually help you create templates for user stories. So you can actually put it in, what you're trying to do, what you want to do, and it will create that template for you. And then you can put it in the Jira or Atlassian or whatever you use, right? Azure DevOps. And you can utilize it that way. So I've seen that be very useful. Those are just a few ways, but I think written communication is very important too. Because one thing I've seen is, and this goes back to earlier when we were helping people just communicate better, right? Because one thing I've noticed is a lot of times, most times, the 5 ceremonies that you usually have are not enough for your team to be effective. And not everybody's super busy, but sometimes something comes up and they're like, oh, well, I haven't gotten a chance to talk to this person. Okay, why not? Oh, well, we just haven't set up. Darian, can you set up the call for like me and this person, this person? Well, you know everybody needs to be in it. You set it up. You can do that. Right? So it's just, and it's helping, and AI can help with written communication, setting those things up as the why, as far as also helping you find the best time to do that, whether you want to do it weekly, bi-weekly, it's a one-off call or monthly. So we've utilized AI in that form as well, because it's not that I want to take myself out of things, but again, I want to give people empowerment and help them start to own things so that I can continue to help the team grow in other areas, not just setting up meetings, right? So those are just a few ways on a basic level it's being used. I can't imagine what it's going to do in the future outside of like just teaching other ways to code or just helping those processes improve, because we'll be delivering business value like crazy at that point, right? Absolutely, in many ways. I can't speak to all of them because I'm not really in those orgs at all, so I don't want to speak to that. But I know it's very prevalent. I work in the energy industry. Anything you think of, your power, your electricity, you know, I work in that industry. So AI is infused into everything. It's infused into how we, you know, get data, you know, different things like that. So yeah, it's very prevalent where I work. And I love learning from some of the intuitive teams who are on the ground doing those things and helping build our future to be more effective. So I look forward to working with one of those teams one day. I love it, especially like I said, with my written communication. You have to learn from that because you can use it for that to improve your own personal written communication, but you can also utilize it to make more effective meetings. So a lot of times I'm like, hey, I know we're pretty efficient. We've turned this hour. Now we're used about 35, 40 minutes of this call, right? So we've made it more efficient. We're doing that. But how can it be more effective? What can we bring in from input and what output to another call from it, right? So I can utilize AI on my own and say, hey, like, these are things, they're topics that we cover in this call. These are the different types of calls we have. How can I create more input output so these things flow better? So now I can start to think about that and be like, oh, okay, like we actually didn't talk about that at all here. Now we can utilize our roadmap in this call this way. Maybe we don't look at the full picture, but we zoom in here and we talk about this and why this part is so important, right? Or maybe we haven't been bringing in a certain user or stakeholder to a certain call that we can start to implement them. And that'll make our process better. So I've just been using it to really help me understand how things flow better together. And on a personal level, I use it a lot. Like I'm always utilizing like learning how like ChatGPT goes versus like Llama from the meta version or different ones and how they learn from each other. So I'm very intrigued on that in my personal life. So I use it a lot. So I'm always trying to figure out better ways to work myself in that. And then utilizing that with our internal system and understanding, hey, because I can give feedback, right? This is new for a lot of people. So I think the more you learn outside of work, the more you can add value to work, whether that's your internal system or whatever that looks like. So I'm constantly learning from that. And I think you said a very important word, understanding, because I truly believe people think communication and understanding are the same thing, and they're not. A lot of times there's a lot of communication on a call, but no understanding. And I think that's very important. So the one thing I always do, whether I've been in an org for a year or two, or I'm just joining, is I start with one-on-ones because I want to start to understand perspective on why people are doing things and their perspective on, you know, their own skill set, what they're doing. That's how I learn to work quickest. You can give me a 5-page document on what our work is all day, but until I talk to someone and I start to understand like the levels of it and the details of it, I'm really not going to understand that. And if I have 8 engineers on my team, each of them has a different level of understanding of what that is. So it helps paint a better picture for me and helping to understand that. And then talking to my PO. So I just really see a lot of people don't do that. And it's really, I think if you really want to understand your team, you really want to help, you should be having one-on-ones. And it doesn't have to be every week for the year, right? Like have some when you first join a team, have them quarterly with your team, right? Whatever that looks like, but start to talk to your teammates so you can build relationships with them, right? On one end, so that you can understand from a technical level because sometimes you're also like embarrassed to ask some questions. You don't know what every acronym means. We have a million acronyms, right? Like, hey, I would say FAC on a call. Like, what is that? Right? What does that mean? Where did that come from? How does that impact our team? What do we do? So I've just learned to ask a lot more questions in those calls, take notes, and now I can utilize that in stand-up. I can utilize that in sprint planning, and it makes our calls even more effective, right? Because we're starting to do those things. And now people can come to me and say, hey, Darian, because that's another thing. One-on-ones help so much with why relationship is so important, because a lot of times people wait until meetings to ask questions. And I'm like, we have like Microsoft Teams for a reason, right? Like this goes between communication and understanding. Like, don't wait until stand up the next day if you had something, if it's Monday at 3 o'clock, you have a question, like ask it, right? And I think the more you build a relationship with people, the more someone will be willing to do that instead of waiting the next day. And then now we can move better, right? So I just really have helped learn a lot from that, whether it's from a technical aspect or whatever, and just remind them to talk to me like, explain it to me like a fifth grader.
Yeah, I used to do that to my
Please do that, right? Because I'm not going to understand everything, especially as if you're within a certain industry, like I'm in the energy industry, but our teams work on a broad range of things in that industry. So if I'm joining a new team, yes, I know we're in the energy industry, but you may work on marketing, or you may work on, the light poles that are outside of our house, or whatever that looks like, the grid. And so I really need to understand what we're doing and some of the technical aspect behind that. So again, I can have that communication with our leaders as well as helping our team be empowered, because it's like, what are we doing? Why are we doing it? And how do we do it? Yeah, and I smile and laugh at that, because it's like experience is the best teacher, and you don't have to start perfect. I definitely wasn't perfect. One call in particular, I remember with the teams I started with in backlog refinement, it gets so technical, and I'd be the one sharing my screen all the time, or I would be fixing a statement or acceptance criteria in something, and someone would be saying something, I'd be typing out, I know it'd be wrong, like, no, we didn't say that word, we said it. It's like, oh, and it's like, this is taking so long. So I was like, listen, I don't have to share my screen to facilitate. They don't go one-on-one. I can facilitate a good call and have someone else share their screen, and this call go way smoother. But I stopped sharing my screen for some calls like that, and I started encouraging either our tech lead or if we have it, like, and that's the thing too, sometimes we focus on specific things in backlog refinement. It's not always the same format. So if we're focusing on a specific piece of our work, have that person share their screen and type things out, right? Because it'll just go a lot smoother, and then I can keep us on track. I can facilitate well. But I think that was something I learned way too late, and I went through that struggle of typing things out, backspacing, typing things out, and the calls just took forever. And I was like, this is not right? But I didn't learn beforehand, right? It took me going through that experience on my own to learn that, and then the team was like, well, I don't want to share you. You're the person that shares your screen, and you'll go through that. But I go back to my saying no. I say it in the way we have fun with it. So
Right.
if nobody shares their screen, we're just going to be talking. So somebody will end up sharing their screen. Yeah, you have to set the right standards for yourself, or somebody's going to set them for you, right? So I try to be proactive as I can. So what that looks like for me is when I'm not with the team or thinking at the team level, I'm trying to think at the helicopter view level. So how can I start to think at our portfolio level, whether I'm asked to or not? That's not the purpose. How do I start to think at the portfolio level so I can go ahead of our team 6 months or even to a year and start to think that way, so that I'm setting the team up for success? Because that doesn't just look like what the business value is we're delivering this sprint or what we're delivering this month. Sometimes it's the practices or the way that we're working, or it's talking about how we want to get something done later. I may be talking with an engineering manager about how, we have 5 engineers on the team. We may need 7 to 8 to really get done what we're hoping. Or I know we want to do this one thing. So how do you start to just think at that level and think proactively to really build? That can be hard sometimes. And it's hard to even like say that when you're not specific in a situation. You really have to think proactively and get out at the team level sometimes. Absolutely. And you have to realize too, like what you're doing with your team could have a much larger impact outside of just your portfolio or your department. So sometimes you're doing things within your team, and there are 4 or 5 other departments that have Agilists or Scrum Masters in them that could really be using those practices. And now you're thinking company level, but still team level, but now you're thinking company level, right? And you're like, oh, like we really have this process. I really figured out a way to really hone in on our 2 weeks and really get the most out of our team. How can I help other Agilists or Scrum Masters do that with their teams?
Yeah, that's amazing.
And it's one way to just be at your level, but be very valuable across the board. And I think that's really helpful. And I don't think we do that enough. Whether you have community of practices at your company or not, that's something, you can get people together. You can
you can do it, right? Yourself.
right?
Yeah.
Not to say you have to run it every time, right? Be a facilitator of the facilitators.
Yeah, totally.
But you can also do that, and you can start to share ideas and learn and grow. And I think that I've always thought like that. So it's been natural for me to create environments like that. But I think that's another way that we can just continuously grow. Yeah, so I think about roles and responsibilities. I think about like RACI charts, things like that, like traditional things.
Yeah.
And I know that a lot of times, you know, like I said, you're thinking at the team level as a Scrum Master, but you want to start to think about, you know, we have SAFe as a structure. You have less, like Scrum at Scale as a structure. And sometimes those structures can blend to make the best of both worlds, just different structures. So you want to start to see what can you do in your org to do that? What are you missing? And if you start with what you're missing, you can start to look at that, okay? And it's like, okay, I understand we have these calls, but we don't really have any calls connecting our leadership and our team.
Yeah, like moving inefficiencies in a sense, you're
Inefficiency.
saying.
Why,
Yeah.
like, where is our flow? If we have a flow up, but we don't have any flow down, then where's that communication? Where's that understanding? So we're starting to understand things at the methodology level. And hey, okay, I've realized in SAFe, we do these things. This is really helpful how we just get together as a team quarterly and we plan this thing out, right?
Yeah.
At the Scrum at Scale level, we do a few other things, but how do I take pieces of that and add that to what we're doing now? It may not be, it's not saying that we're safe. We may not be able to do that.
Yeah.
How do I take aspects of that and like I can start to apply that if our org has 6 teams within it and our communication between those 6 teams isn't great, what can I start to implement at that portfolio level so that we can start to apply those things better? What teams need to get together to really start to collaborate better so that our users and stakeholders can have a bigger impact on the work that we're doing, right? So it's really just thinking like that in the strategy of how now you're thinking bigger, if you're thinking at least 6 months out of how your portfolio is delivering work, right?
Yeah.
But you really have to get in tune with, like I said, being proactive and understanding the work. So you at first have to understand what you're doing, understand the body of work that's happening. You have to understand your team and their influence on that work. And then you can start to help them, hey, maybe we need to add this type of call. I need our leader, I need our PMs, and I need like the tech leads in this call. That's it. And this is what I need you guys to talk about because this is a missing piece.
Right.
Right.
Oh, that's
And
beautiful.
so
Yeah.
it creates something that is like I said, I'll keep saying that a missing piece because I think that's why we're here is to find the gaps, right?
Yeah.
And to help people understand like how do we get better? Because a lot of times you just don't know what you don't know. And sometimes I just need to sit back and observe and not say anything for a few weeks and just like, oh, okay, I see it now. And when you say all that, I think about that visual that a lot of people have seen where it goes from the scooter to the bicycle to the motorcycle to the car, right? And it's like, if the people don't want a plane, why are you trying to create the pieces to give them a plane, right? Maybe they just want a much better engine on the car.
Yeah.
And so that all goes together with that. And just understanding at a product level, the vision, and then making sure that the team really understands that vision. I see that a lot of times where like the product owner is really involved, but they may not see the team may not see the product manager or talk to them often. So how do I get them in front of them more?
Yeah.
Right? How do I get y'all in front of them so you can ask them questions sometimes? And it's not to go over anybody's head or anything, but it's to create more communication and more collaboration so that they start to understand why you're doing what you're doing and helping out. There's so many different ways you can create small wins. I remember one of my teams started as Scrum, and with the type of work, and this is me observing for a few sprints, but with the type of work that we had and what we were doing, it really didn't make sense for us to run as a Scrum team. It made sense for us to be a Kanban team. And I remember us just having that conversation, and it was a transition that made a lot of sense. It hurt a little bit, but it made so much sense, and then the team started to just work better, right? That's a small win or a big one, however you want to look like it, where you are, but it's something that really impacts an org or impacts people where you may just have to make that shift, right? I remember helping a few engineers really just take ownership on what they were doing, as far as whether that's user stories or jumping into this or jumping into that, helping POs understand how they need to communicate the vision to the team. Because a lot of times you're just the visionary, but you don't communicate. You're just getting calls and kind of talk about what we're doing and why we're doing it. Not always why, but just what we're doing. But I've just seen small wins. I always try to think of things in a basketball level, but like if our goal is the championship, we have to practice. We have 30 some games in a season at the college level, and then our goal is a championship. So all those small things I'm doing are leading to that, which you may not see right now, but you will, right? So yeah, the small wins, I've learned to just help those things. I think this is another one. A lot of folks don't get a lot of exposure, right? So if you want people to get more exposure, help your engineers start to speak more, either whether that's at a demo or whatever that may be in front of other users or stakeholders or in front of other people at all hands. Try to find your team opportunities to be seen, right? That goes a really long way, and I don't think that happens enough. That's another small one. I'm trying to think of a few more. I would say that for now. Oh man, I can't even express in words. I've learned so much from the community of people I've been around in this space. I think it was really hard for me to even transition from coaching just at a personal level to help people understand that. But I knew where I was going with my family and I knew what we wanted. But I still have a lot of those relationships with, coaches and players and things like that as well. So I don't miss it because I'm still there. Right. But it's helped me just understand things in a different manner. Like we run our household with our little kids in an agile manner, right? We do things and we utilize our skills in so many ways. And I'm just truly thankful for the opportunities that, I got from the Agile Academy and going through you guys as kind of that boot camp or that coaching cohort in the beginning, so shout out to y'all for helping facilitate just that growth in people and helping people get to where they want to be. But also just learning not to be so strict in my ways. I think it's helped me so much. I wanted to be the Agile police when I first started and just come in like, oh, we have to do it this way. No, we have to do it that way. And I've just learned you can't do that. It's not going to help your team. You can do it, but it's not going to help your team. No matter where you are, how rigid things need to be agile yourself, right? And start to help the team implement 1 or 2 small things at a time and really build those relationships to do that. And learning that in itself has helped me so much in life and given me so much to look forward to. So if I can learn it, I can teach it. If I can teach it, then I can teach other people how to teach it. And I think it's like teaching people how to fish rather than feeding people. Right. So it's a continuous cycle of that and helping people do that. And I think as you do that, you will help different organizations grow at the level in which they need to. And as you move from team to team or org to org, you will bring that success with you and you'll create things even faster because of what you've learned in the past.
All right, that's a wrap with this episode. Thank you for listening till the end. We hope these podcasts are providing value on your Agile journey. If you haven't visited our website, theagilecoach.com, we highly suggest you for other courses and supporting material on your journey. You can also get access to our self-paced courses or learn more about the live training that we provide to become a Scrum Master, Product Owner, Product Manager. With that, we will see you on the next episode. Love and best wishes from the Agile Coach.